Nobody's shocked to find out Bruno Fernandes is Manchester United's player of the season, but a lot of people are shocked by reports coming out from quite a credible source that Mason Mount could be set to leave Manchester United, but not permanently, on loan. I mean, it makes zero sense. Berrada has that 2-year rule. Could it be applied to Mason Mount? As Berrada will brutally kick Manchester United players out who have underperformed for 2 seasons. Bayindir could go and could raise funds for a new goalkeeper that could push Onana. What is the latest on Onana and his future? Chelsea still want Garnacho, that's said by David Ornstein. Rashford exit, the latest on that. Could he return for a little bit like Sancho in pre-season? Is Agate's future safe? Lindelof, Ericsson, more confirmed exits, and Toby Collyer. Let's have a little chat about him because he is back from injury. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news, and update roundup. But we're going to round up all the latest Manchester United news that you guys need to know in 10 minutes. So let's dive into this first story. Official, Bruno Fernandes wins the Sir Matt Busby Player of the Year award. This is the 4th time he's won it in 6 seasons at Manchester United, equaling Ronaldo and David De Gea's record. Amad Diallo came 2nd in the voting. Harry Maguire came 3rd in the voting. We're yet to know who the Players' Player of the Season is, but it's very likely that Bruno has told his Man United players not to vote for him, so somebody else wins a different kind of award. So I'm thinking maybe Masraoui or Amad could be Players' Player of the Season. You know, Maguire's had good moments, Lloris had good moments, but I think it would probably be Masraoui or Amad in regards to that. But well done to Bruno. Aren't we lucky to have him at the club? But let's talk about Mason Mount. So this has come from the Muppeteers, who are quite a credible source of information, and they said there's a possibility that Mason Mount could be sent out on loan this summer. Now, my first thought when reading this is what? It doesn't make sense. I'm not saying BS. They do have a source of information, but I'm saying I don't get this because nobody that I know has said anything similar. Everybody that I know, every reliable source has said that Mason Mount is viewed highly by Amorim, seen as part of the long-term project. United are desperate to keep him fit. Everything that's been said on Mason Mount from people I've spoken to from reliable sources is Amorim thinks he's key if he can stay fit. Man United, if they could sell Mason Mount permanently, they'd look to do that. But we would need over £30 million this summer to sell Mason Mount permanently, and that's not going to happen with his injury record and wages. Man United don't want to send Mason Mount out on loan because if Mason Mount is fit and available, Amorim will utilise him. It's not like Anthony that Amorim didn't want. It's not like Rashford that Amorim didn't want. If Mason Mount is available, Amorim will utilise him. So if Amorim wants a player, there's no point sending him out on loan, even if he's always injured. If he stays fit, and if he has a season where he stays fit and he does well on loan for a year, we're going to be saying, well, Mason Mount stayed fit for a whole year on loan and is doing well. Like, I know Cunha could be going in at left 10. I know that Garnacho is a left 10. Xerxes can play 10. Bruno can play 10. Amad can play 10. There could be a lot of attacking additions, so Mount is further down that pecking order. But we all know that Mason Mount knows Amorim's system, can play Amorim's system. I've never seen Amorim so happy as to when Mount scored. I don't think that Manchester United have any plans to get rid of Mount. I think if someone came and bid 50 million for Mason Mount, Manchester United would 100% accept that. If Manchester United could make profit on Mason Mount, they'd 100% accept it because of his injury record. But I think Mason Mount is staying. I don't think United would entertain loans. I think next summer they could look to sell him when his book value is lower. But Mason Mount will be at Manchester United next season. I'm confident of that, despite the Muppeteers saying there's a possibility of a loan. And Muppeteers are a good source of information. They say Mason Mount could be leaving on loan. Maybe he does. Maybe they're right about this. Maybe we're all going to owe them some kind of apology because if Cunha comes in, Garnacho stays, maybe the minutes aren't looking the best for Mason Mount. Maybe he goes out on loan. There would be teams interested. He is on high wages. Maybe Ineos want to get him off the wage bill. But in my honest opinion, it makes no sense. Let me know what you think down below. It was also said, and this is the only thing I can think of in regards to Mason Mount going, is Berrada's very much willing to kick people out that don't perform within 1 or 2 years. Omar Berrada feels that players have to leave the club within 1 or 2 years. Players staying at Manchester United 3 or 4 years despite poor performances will be deemed as unacceptable by the new board. Look at Anthony, how he got loaned out. Malacia got loaned out. Maybe he's going to look at it and go, Højlund, 2 seasons, Onana, 2 seasons, Mason Mount, 2 seasons. The problem is with Højlund, we need 38 million. With Mason Mount, we need 34 million. And Onana, we need 26 million to avoid making a loss. Because if we sell any of those 3 players for less than those 3 prices, we will have less money to spend in the summer, despite selling players because of PSR rules and that turning into a loss. So it's one of those where maybe Mason Mount is going to go on loan because Berrada can't sell him permanently and he's had his 2 years and he wants him gone. But every source and indication has been very much like, well, Ineos like him, Amorim likes him. He's seen as a player. It's about keeping him fit. But maybe Mason Mount does go, Højlund go, Onana go. You've had 2 years, you haven't performed. Maybe Mason Mount goes despite his biggest issue being availability. Maybe Berrada does kick him out because Berrada is willing to kick a lot of people out. Ruben Amorim has apparently asked for an enormous turnover in terms of players this summer. He wants a lot of players out. It will be a brutal clear out. Some players are going to be harder to clear out than others because of their book value, making it difficult financially. But a lot of players are going to go, if you don't perform 1 to 2 years, you're out. Anthony, big example of that. Now, goalkeeper's the big question because the priority positions are 10, striker, centre mid and centre back. But United would like another attacking / wing back addition and a goalkeeper. But that massively depends on sales. And interestingly, the Muppeteers did say this on their YouTube channel, which I thought was a really interesting bit of information. The club doesn't want to spend their budget on a goalkeeper. It's a sell to buy position, is what they're saying. And that's fair. That's what we've heard from many other sources. If Bayindir leaves for 5 to 8 million, they'll be able to spend 20 to 25 million because you can almost spend 4 times what you make in pure profit. We've paid off the Bayindir transfer fee. So if we make 5 million profit on Bayindir, we could potentially sell him, spend 20 million on a keeper because of the pure profit thing. It's what the Muppeteers are saying, which is good information there. So potentially we sell Bayindir, we bring in Joan Garcia, and we've got someone that could really challenge Onana if we can't sell Onana. Now, in regards to Onana, I want to dive into what Laurie Whitwell has had to say on Andre Onana. Goalkeeper is not a top priority. Focus remains on striker, top attacker, attacker midfielder, potentially wing back. He said, however, the faith in Onana is fading due to repeated mistakes and key moments. Amorim gave Onana time to disconnect, obviously dropped him for a game for Bayindir, but there's a growing feeling a permanent split could be explored. So while goalkeeper is not a priority, Laurie Whitwell is again saying, look, there's frustration with Onana, his mistakes, it could happen. Do you know what I'm going to tell you? Amorim wants Onana gone. I'll tell you that now. Amorim wants Onana gone. Onana only willing to stay if we're in the Champions League next season because he'll get 25% more in his wages. Saudi interested in Onana, but because of his book value, difficult to sell. Onana likely to stay unless Saudi comes in, but I think Amorim would be more than willing to, of course, sell Onana. Continuing on, David Ornstein confirmed that Alejandro Garnacho is still among Chelsea's winger options. And there was a source yesterday again confirming that Chelsea is still interested in Garnacho. It's one to watch. I don't think United are desperate to sell Garnacho, but United might look at it and go 60 million pure profit. We need the money to spend. I think if we don't get Champions League football and we're in a position where we need money, I almost think Garnacho is more likely to go. Chelsea are interested, Napoli are interested. Chelsea's price is apparently a right-footed left winger, a striker, centre-back. It's the 3 areas that Chelsea want to address. And they do have strong interest in Alejandro Garnacho. And David Ornstein, who's a reliable source of information, has confirmed that. So what's the latest on Marcus Rashford? Because we're talking of Anthony going, we're talking of Garnacho going, Rashford going. That's how the funds would be raised for us to go and bring in 3 attackers, a midfielder, a centre-back, a goalkeeper, potentially a wing-back. I said I could see this happening last month, that Rashford will come back for pre-season and then he'll end right at the end of August, like Sancho did. When we're at like we've got plans for Rashford, but we'll know he'll go out at the end of August. He could go on loan again. The club does not want to reintegrate Rashford back into the squad. The relationship is done with Amorim. They'll have a temporary, we get on now. The expectation is for Rashford to move abroad. The expectation is on Barcelona. Rashford, some sources say, willing to take a pay cut. So we'll have to see what goes on in regards to Barcelona. Now, going back to what I mentioned about the 2 years with Berrada, or 1 to 2 years to perform, there's a few question marks around Ugarte. Some people have question marks around Dorgu, which I think is crazy. I think Dorgu's fine. But the Muppeteers did say that United are not actively looking to sell any of their signings from the summer. So there's rumours of Xerxes. He's not going to go anywhere. Despite Inter's interest, there's rumours of Ugarte could be moved on. Ineos are not looking to sell any of the players that they brought in this summer. In terms of players that will go, we know that Lindelof and Eriksson will leave Manchester United. They've got interest from a number of clubs. Heaton is set to extend his deal for another year. And then we've got an update that Toby Collyer is back from injury. I spoke about it in my live stream yesterday, but Aiden Heaven and Toby Collyer both in the Manchester United squad versus Chelsea. Good to see Collyer back because I actually think he could have a decent role to play had he have stayed fit in this last run of the season. He has the highest ground duel win rate, 81% of any players who have contested 20 plus in the Premier League. He covers mad amounts of ground. He reminds me a little bit about Declan Rice. And I think if it wasn't for his injury, I think we would have seen Collyer get a fair few minutes recently with the rotation with the Europa League, which is such a shame, but it's good to see him back, even if he's only playing one or two matches at the end of the season. I like him. I think he'll go out on loan next year, but I'd quite like him as a squad option. Anyway, thank you for watching today's show. See you next time. Bye.